Thousands of churches all over the country have little signs out in front of them today that say, "He is risen!" Exclamation point. Being Unitarian Universalist, as is our want, my title is He Risen? Question mark. And it all depends on how you look at it. I mean, what do we have? How do we know? What we've got to go on is the experience of his followers, which were stories that got passed down generation after generation, and eventually were written down by various and sundry people, and then argued over. And we know how arguments go. When it's an argument and not a discussion, there are winners and there are losers in the argument. The winners were those who had sufficient worldly power behind them to make their argument stick. And they created dogma, which is to say requirements of what it meant to be a Christian or not be a Christian, or what's the right kind of Christian, etc., etc. And it's all about beliefs, those dogmas. It's what you believe. It's not what you actually do. So, do you believe in the Trinity? Do you believe in the resurrection and death? Do you believe in heaven? Do you believe in hell? For those folks, what Easter represents is the victory over death. Actual deathlessness. So death isn't even a change in address. It essentially doesn't happen. There's no such thing as death for them. Well, no wonder it's such a great holiday. What a thought. But that's not how we see it. And I just want to put something a little parenthetical. A lot of times you'll say, oh, what this actually is just a reenactment of an old pagan ritual. No. In a lot of pagan mythology, there is a character who dies and gets born every year. In Christianity, Jesus does it once, and that's all. So they really are there. There's a death and a resurrection, but one is annual and the other is once forever, and they are fundamentally different from each other. So that's what I want to go with. But you have to remember, we are not Orthodox Christians. And in fact, we are not descended from Orthodox Christians, even though our roots are completely Judeo-Christian. But it's not the Orthodox that we descended for, because Christianity has never been all the same. It has never, from day one, been all the same to everyone. There has always been tremendous variety and diversity among Christians. For instance, some Christians didn't believe in the Trinity. They thought that there was one God, frequently referred to the Father, and that there was probably a Son too, but even they couldn't decide what the Son was. Was the Son wholly divine, or was the Son wholly human? The Orthodox said both. And there was this idea that there was a great deal of variety in thoughts, and so these people were frequently called, since they believed in one God, Unitarians. Just one. There were other Christians who did not believe in the concept of hell, especially in the afterlife. How in the world could there be hell in the afterlife? So, these are the people from whom we are descended. We come from certain groups of heterodox Christians, but we share ideas. All the groups have certain things they talk about, but the emphasis will be different depending on which group you're talking to. Now, our Judeo-Christian ancestors, whence Unitarian Universalism comes, believe that God is love. That was the fundamental belief, that there was this God that was greater than all of us, and that God was love. And what our job was to practice kindness. Nice and simple. God is love, practice kindness. Because when you cut through all the dogma, you cut through all the doctrine, you do away with the dross and the slag and the barnacles, as Jefferson called them, what we're essentially told is that our job is to give and to receive love and kindness. That's the heart of the message. That's what Jesus taught. And he taught it in the name of God. The extraordinary thing about the man is, from all of our reports, he lived it too. He lived that way. He embodied it, or to use more traditional language, he incarnated love and kindness. So let's put this story in a little context. Most people love Easter. It was real interesting. Good Friday is another story. 2 days ago, I got a chance to be involved in the Dahlonega-Lumpkin County Ministers Association's production of a Good Friday service. And there was this one beautifully rendered hymn that was done by a quartet. But later, one of the ministers said, I wish they could have left out the last verse. Because the last verse was about resurrection. They're saying, it's Good Friday. The resurrection doesn't come for 2 days or 3 days. We're always wanting to jump right to it, and we forget about that. Because the Good Friday story is very different. The Good Friday story is one of fear and hatred. It's about a very public execution that was intentionally cruel. Only the Romans at that time did crucifixion. And only political criminals were crucified. Only enemies of the state. And it was done very publicly and very graphically, and it was out there for everyone to see. It was an act of state terrorism. So Good Friday is really about oppression, cruelty, terror, and death. It's a very different story than Easter, but it sets up the Easter story. Because the Easter story is about love and kindness triumphing over death. That you have the love and the kindness, and it overcomes fear and hate. So that's what the story is about. It's about overcoming fear and overcoming hate, and doing so with love and kindness. It's about resurrection, about rebirth, about the resurgence of hope and peace and joy, about choosing life over death. Now, we can look at the story a lot of different ways, and believe me, having been a UU minister for a while and a UU for longer than that, I've heard a lot of takes on this story. I mean, there's some people, it always amazes me how Unitarian Universalists can sometimes be biblical literalists. And they'll look and go, oh, well look, I've read the story, and the story says there is a physical bodily resurrection. And that defies the laws of nature, it's against science, so therefore the story is superstitious and stupid. And I reject it. And some people say, well, I know some Christians that are bad people. And I don't like them, and I don't like the way they treat people because they're hurtful and they shame people. Therefore, I'm going to dismiss their story. It doesn't have anything to do with the story itself, though. What we can do, especially as open-minded, intelligent liberals, is search through the story for the kernel of truth that every story contains. Every story has truth in it. And we can dig into the story, we can ask questions about the story, we can examine the story, we can even embrace the story. Because it's our story as Unitarian Universalists. And it's a story that calls us. And what it does is it calls us from our own tomb-like darkness, or despair, or defeatism, or depression. It calls us from that. It calls us away from that. And the story calls us to wake up. The story calls us to look up and see the sun. It calls us to hope and to peace and to joy, to love, kindness, and life. And this is really going fast. It's kind of an interesting thing when you go from teaching to go into ministry and start condensing everything. I think I'm over-condensed here. But I'm just going to put it to you straight. You know, why am I doing Easter service when that has not been the practice of this congregation? What we usually do is not talk about Easter at all and have what we call flower communion, but we're going to do flower ceremony next month. And I'll talk more about that then, why I made that choice. It was a very principled and historically based choice. But one, it's Easter. The rest of the world is recognizing Easter. It's where we come from, the Passover and Easter stories. I mean, they're intertwined. And it's ours. So the question is, do I believe that Jesus of Nazareth, a.k.a. the Christ, actually existed as a real human being in history? Well, as an historian, absolutely. I think we have exceptionally good evidence that Jesus existed as a real person. Do I believe that the Roman Empire killed him as a political criminal? Yes. Yes, I do. I don't think there's much question about that. Well, do I believe in the bodily resurrection of Jesus? No, I don't, personally. But do I believe that the Spirit of Jesus triumphed over death, came back to life, and dwells among us today? Yes, I do. Everything good in Christianity, they tried to kill him and to kill his ideas and kill his thoughts, and it didn't work. The Spirit and the teachings of Jesus came right up out of the tomb and stayed with him. It went from a little band of Jewish disciples to a third of the planet, who sometimes do their church a little weird, I think. Not the way I think Jesus would have it. But underneath it, if you look at the teachings, those teachings won't go away. You know, what did Jesus always teach? It was always love your neighbor as you love yourself. That was the fundamental message. And as long as that fundamental message is there, that the primary law of the land, of the universe, is to love one another, to give love, and to receive love, to be kind, and to accept kindness, then I think Jesus has triumphed. He has won. He did defeat death in that sense, because he has given us something that is greater than death, something that is truly deathless in love and kindness for one another. And that's why, as a Unitarian Universalist, I cannot help but celebrate this day. It is a joyous holiday of life, a holiday of hope, and a holiday of love. And I pray that you will come here today, and that while you're here, you're able to fill your cup with loving kindness and take it home with you. Take it home to heal yourself, and take it home to share and to heal a broken world that is so desperate for love and kindness. That is our gift that we may give in celebration of this season. So may it be.